probably stronger than we think. We're probably not as weak as we may have thought we are. And there's probably things that we can do by digging down deeper than maybe we felt like we were incapable of going that deep to get something done. I'll explain what I mean here on this next episode of the Gratitude Journal podcast.
This is the Gratitude Journal podcast.
Welcome, my friends. I know you probably thought, what the heck happened to that guy? Nothing really, just inundated with a bunch of crap and crap that in some way, shape, and form kind of turned out better than I thought it was going to turn out. It's Matthew here on another episode of the Gratitude Journal podcast, defeating again my desire to create these episodes in a more timely fashion. And again, I have failed you miserably, which means I have failed myself miserably. But I am digging deep and trying to bounce back here in what has materialized as the video podcast space and kind of trying it out. I'm not running any cameras right now because I had a little camera mishap. And again, my promise to be up on YouTube with a video version of the Gratitude Journal waylaid yet again, but I do have hopes that this will materialize here in 2024. Here's hoping that things are good with you. And, I constantly sort of have to remind myself exactly why I'm doing this. And I think I can say it best by continually reminding myself that I'm supposed to be finding gratitude in the things that make themselves known to me each and every day. And sometimes trying to pull a MacGyver, and try to make things work that don't seem like they're going to work, and try to discover with greater intent that there are things around me that I am thankful for that I sometimes miss the boat on. And I think the magic word this time around is intent, like trying to do something actively and not passively, trying to do something with actual intent to succeed. And maybe I don't even know if success is really the right word, because that would mean that there's like a winning or losing sort of goal. There was over the past several weeks, which I think probably I can say accounts for my absence as far as creating new episodes with this podcast. But something else that has helped me, I hope, to refashion other instances in my life where I'm doing so with the intent of producing good. So I know that I probably have mentioned in other episodes of this podcast that I had been studying for a test. And as you know, I'm kind of an amateur photographer, and I guess an amateur videographer too, although it's primarily what I do for work. And it's primarily what I have done for work lately. A lot more video than audio. And I bring that up because one of the goals of this year was to try to introduce aerial imagery into my lexicon. And I think that after doing the research, I realized that, having a drone, buying a drone is one thing, and then being able to learn to operate is another. But the even more important factor in this is having the necessary licensure according to the FAA so that I can operate this, safely and invariably for, who knows, maybe some kind of profit, which means to operate an unmanned aircraft for commercial purposes, you have to have a certain kind of licensure. So that's really what I've been studying for. I mean, for the most part, I have been drowning in videos while I do my stationary bike ride in the morning. I have been ordering various books to complement the study. And I realized about a month ago, maybe a little less, after taking some practice exams and trying to prepare to take this 2-hour, 60-question multiple choice test, that I really wasn't doing all that great on the practice exams. And so my organization as far as study was rather haphazard, following several people on YouTube and looking through these books that I had ordered and trying to get a basic understanding of airspace and trying to get a basic understanding as to how exactly the government would attempt to test you, and utilizing their different ways to try to trip you up, and how to be on the lookout, for these trip up instances. And it was really kind of turning my head inside out. I felt like after I had done a couple of sample tests, I wasn't feeling very grateful for, my chosen method of study. And so, a lot of these YouTube channels were saying, you don't have to buy a course. All you have to do is do this, 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 and this. And so I watched several of those and thinking, good, I can, give my wallet a break, and I don't have to pay for a particular online class to try to get me over the hump and get me a passing score for this test, which needed to be a 70. And so prior to buying a course, which I invariably did, I watched somebody's channel and they were like, listen, make the appointment to take the test. That way you won't just have this open-ended time frame where you are thinking to yourself, at some point I got to make an appointment to take this test. I'll just keep studying. And so that's what I did. And I made an appointment, and which means I had to pay for that. And so then I had a clear deadline in mind, and that was the end of August. And so that's pretty much what I did. I wasn't really too keen on plunking down money to pay somebody, but I actually watched a free video from a guy named John Peltier, and I really liked his style. He was an Air Force veteran, a former Air Force pilot, former commercial pilot, and he just had a lot of organized things to say about how to pass this Part 107 test. And I liked his style. And the more I looked into his course, I thought, I'm really kind of butting up, against the deadline here, and I really need to do something about that. And so I took the class, and long story short, I made my appointment, of course. I showed up at my appointment, and during the test, I didn't feel like I really did all that well. I really was kind of prepared to fail and prepared to have to tell people. And I told very few people because I didn't want to have to hide with my tail between my legs and, admit that now I had to reschedule this test and then pay for it again. I really didn't want to do that. But as I was going through the test, I wasn't feeling very confident. And I remembered something that John had said in one of the training videos, and that is to eliminate an answer that just cannot be an answer. And then once you make your decision, go back over everything and then go back over everything again and decide whether you really want to insert the other available answer in place of the one that you had already chosen. And so I was just really grateful for having the wherewithal to remember that, because early in that test period, I was so nervous, and I was making myself so nervous that my hand on the mouse of the computer was actually jumping up and down. And I found myself taking my left arm and grabbing onto my right wrist to keep my right hand down on the mouse because I was so nervous. And so I had to stop and take a couple of breaths and think, okay, listen, you've got to chill out. I mean, this is just a test. If you pass, great. If it happens that you don't, you will just have to retake it. So rather than put yourself through even more misery than you've already been experiencing, why not just try to remember that? And so I say that the second hour, and I took all 2 hours because I kept remembering that this John said, you have 2 hours. Use all the 2 hours. And I did. In fact, there were probably only 13 seconds left in the timer on the computer before I finally hit submit. And, that space between packing up all your stuff and walking out into the common area and getting your results seemed like it took forever. And of course, when the person printed off my results, he didn't say anything. He just handed me the piece of paper along with some other piece of paper. And I couldn't read it because I didn't have my reading glasses on, because after cataract surgery, I have to have reading glasses on for everything. So I had to exit the lobby. I had to go out into the hallway, and I had to try to find the reading glasses so that I could actually read the results on the sheet of paper. And as I was reading the results, I kept thinking to myself, okay, whatever happened. And there's nothing that you can do about it. And my train of thought was automatically interrupted because it said 87. And I went, 87. Wait, I had to look. Is that my name on this? This is not somebody else's, right? And so, it was sheer exhilaration that I, had passed. And so I'm really grateful for, I didn't want to spend the money on the course, but I'm grateful that I made the decision to go in that direction, because as I said to their online forum in my after test survey of the course, I really feel like it was the difference maker. So much so that I even made a video of it. As a lot of people do, a sort of a before the test and after test video where they try to give others tips about what they experienced during their test and how the FAA tried to trip them up. And so, I mean, it was just, it was the beginning of a long Labor Day weekend. I was, completely exhausted from, the mental torture that I'd put myself through. And I was very, very, very happy. One of the things that I think this test taught me in studying for this test, even if I don't ever do a whole lot with using a drone, because now I have to learn about the drone. Like I've just learned how to turn it on and charge up the batteries and how to get it to talk to the controller. And I mean, that's a whole other learning curve. But I had really sort of forgotten how satisfying it is to accomplish something. And I'm really in awe of people who, certainly in awe of athletes, who, train and win a medal at the Olympics, or, somebody who gets their PhD, because obviously that's a long time period. We don't need 3, 4, 5, 6 years of training for something to feel, a sense of accomplishment. I feel like I experienced that a little bit during COVID by, where it seemed like everybody else was sort of gaining weight. I had actually lost weight, even though I have since gained some weight back, which may in fact be another accomplishment. But the feeling of accomplishing something is, it's kind of ego-centered, but it feels very good. It feels really great to be able to like set a goal for something and then achieve the goal. And I think as I was walking out into the hallway trying to find my reader glasses so I could actually look at the results, I feel like more than being able to say to people I passed, and not having to say I failed, I feel like I just wanted there to be like an end result of all of the sort of, I guess, training, that I did for this and the fact that I could accomplish something. And, this is very seemingly the opposite of the way my brain works, trying to, come to the conclusion that it's either this way or that way. There's not a lot of in between. In my job, as I'm, manipulating footage or trying to find the right music for something I'm producing that's airworthy, on the radio station, I have, a good amount of latitude, a good amount of creative latitude to try to find a pathway to get to where I need to be. And, there's a lot of give and take. There's a lot of that could work. I think I'll look further. That didn't sound too bad, or I can make that sound better. And there's a lot of, sort of creative gray area. And here, like, this is either Class D airspace or it isn't. I'm either, allowed to fly in this airspace or I need to get prior approval from air traffic control. There's no maybe they'll just know that I'm a nice guy and I can fly near this airport. There isn't any of that, it's very sort of black and white. There's not any gray area involved. And so from that standpoint, this was sort of a different sort of radical way, I think, that my brain normally works, even though in the last several years, being a caregiver and trying to make sure that, boxes get checked, I have been swinging more over to that side. That's like more left brain, right? I kind of get those mixed up. But this, on the surface seemed very anti-me. And so from that standpoint, I feel a sense of gratitude that, that I was able to accomplish that. Accomplishment is a good thing. So now you're probably saying to yourself, well, good, now you can concentrate not only just on supplying us more audio for podcast episodes, but you can, and keeping us, informed about what's going on with your life, you can actually get this video thing, together. And I swear, on a stack of Bhagavad Gitas that I am going to film at least one episode of the video version of the Gratitude Journal. I don't even know if it could be called that because I think that name's already taken, actually. I'm going to get something up in 2024. I make you that promise, okay? And you're like, yeah, right. No, seriously, I think that's going to happen, and that's what I'm going to do. That's going to be my next accomplishment, is to try to make that happen. So thank you for your patience. Thank you for rooting for me, because I know that I've mentioned this before. It's been taking up a lot of my personal time. And so mission accomplished. And hopefully we will see each other and talk to each other more on more episodes of this, the Gratitude Journal podcast.